Bera of California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank the witnesses. I think it's disingenuous for us to lay what's happening in Iraq as a failure here in America or as a failure of any particular administration here in America. I think our troops did everything within their power to give Iraq a chance. You know, we shed blood. We spent billions of dollars to give Iraq a chance. One of my staff members is an Iraq War veteran, a wounded warrior, Matt Ciccato, and just chatting to him, as veterans all around this country are saddened by what they're seeing in Iraq because they did lose their colleagues. They did lose many men and women, as we all did in Iraq. But we gave them a chance. We really did. It is all tragic to see what's happening to some of the civilians that served side by side with our troops supporting our efforts in Iraq and the danger that they live under. So we really do have to do everything that we can to try to ensure their safety and serve their visas as we can. But this isn't a failure of an American administration. This is a failure of Iraqi administration. And I think everyone in this body would be consistent that this is a failure of the al-Maliki administration. There were Sunni tribal leaders that fought side by side with us in the surge, that were made promises that were broken by al-Maliki, systematically dismantling some of Iraqi's own defense forces in a way that we saw what happened in Mosul, and they fell apart. Now, I think, Ms. Slotkin, in your own statement, you said there is no military solution in Iraq. You indicated that the Iraqi people must do the heavy lifting on their own. Can you expand on that and tell us what you think that heavy lifting would be?
Well, I think Brett's spoken to some of the ideas that are currently being batted about in Baghdad to sort of get towards that political solution. I mean, I think the point that I would make, as we look towards any potential decisions the president makes for future action is, we couldn't solve the Iraqi political problems for them when we had 170,000 troops. We couldn't have solved them if we had kept in 10,000 troops in 2011, and we're not going to be able to solve them through our military support today, regardless of what we decide to do. The Iraqis have to get at the underlying political differences in their system. ISIL is extremely capable, extremely dangerous, but they are getting tacit support from the Sunnis on the ground in these areas, and it's critical that the central government solve those problems. Those Sunnis turn away from ISIL and towards their government.
And Mr. McGurk, would, in your assessment, if a new Iraqi government was a more inclusive government that gave equal say to the Kurds and the Sunnis and gave them a voice, do you sense that some of our former allies and some of these tribal leaders would, take a different view on ISIL?
We have to be very clear that ISIL is a military force, and so we have seen tribes try to take it on, and they failed. We trained about 1,000 Fallujahs in 3 months of training, not we, the Iraqis, in 3 months of training, and in their first engagement trying to move into the northern reaches of Fallujah a couple months ago, they lost. That is because ISIL is a highly effective, sophisticated military organization. It is far better than the al-Qaeda in Iraq that we fought, and in order for the awakening really to get moving in those days, it took a lot of effort on our part to degrade that network, which then allowed the awakening and the tribal networks to really rise up and fight it. So I think it has to be taken in parallel. There will have to be some military pressure against ISIL. At the same time, there has to be a new government with political accommodations made to isolate ISIL from the population. But they have to run in parallel to be effective.
So if we're thinking this through strategically, new government forms in Iraq that is much more inclusive. The Sunnis within Iraq become much more open to not supporting ISIL. Our allies in the region, potentially from the Sunni side, can also provide some support, as well as looking at ways to cut off the funding and support of ISIL. Would that be a logical, thought-through scenario?
Yes, and I would just add, I don't think Sunnis support ISIL. And there was an election on April 30th in which ISIL votes, we're going to kill you. They're very clear about that. And in Nineveh province alone, we had almost a record turnout of 1.1 million people, all Sunnis, voting for new leaders. But ISIL threatens, they intimidate, they rule by brute force. And so that is one reason why they need to be confronted and isolated. But yes, that is a sequence. First, we have to continue to find ways to pressure ISIL. But a new government providing a new platform, and also with new regional engagement. And we will hope very much that when there is a new government, and there will be, that the regional capitals fully embrace that government, so we can really make some inroads in regional integration, which has not made many inroads over the last couple of years.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bera. Mr. Kinzinger.